I will not carry a gun, Frank. When I got into this war, I had a very clear understanding with the Pentagon. No guns.
On MASH, Alan Alda wasn't quite flawless. He and a co-star he detested got into heated arguments often. Until it ceased being humorous, MASH was a popular program noted for its drama and comedy. For what reason did the show's allure fade? To whom did Alan Alda express his distaste? Who was it? A member of the cast or the crew? Prepare to find out more intriguing things about MASH and the solutions to your questions. Behind the scenes, turmoil occurred during the second season of MASH's production. Jackie Cooper, the show's director, and Alan Alda, the legendary actor who played Hawkeye Pierce, were not exactly close friends. It seems that their perspectives on the proper way to do things on site were divergent. More room for the players' imaginations was something Alan, who was famous for his humor and improvisational abilities, craved. In his opinion, Jackie's overly prescriptive rules and directives were limiting their ability to think creatively. Due of Jackie's more conventional style of directing, Alan felt he couldn't fully develop the characters or add his own flair to Hawkeye. However, Jackie was an expert with years of experience in the field. Most likely, he thought the performers would faithfully obey his every command and stay true to the script. Alan may have resisted Jackie's leadership because of their different work methods, which caused friction between the two. Alan wanted the program to be top-notch and cared a lot about its quality, but he was unhappy because he thought Jackie wasn't giving it her all. But Jackie saw things differently. He had some trouble getting along with Alan. People knew Alan as someone who was stubborn and inflexible. For a director like Jackie, used to taking the lead, his lack of consideration for others' ideas and views was a source of frustration. According to Jackie, Alan's attempts to dominate the scenes hindered his ability to carry out his duties adequately. The situation is like trying to assemble a Lego model while someone keeps removing your parts and offering instructions on how to put them together. It's hardly exactly a blast, is it? Working with Alan, Jackie likely felt the same way. It seems that a disagreement about the show's direction and a clash of personalities were the root causes of their difficulty. Unlike Jackie, who favored a more conventional method in which he was in command, Alan yearned for more leeway to express his creativity and work with others. Their disagreements and strong ideas sometimes caused friction in their relationship. Did Alan and Jackie just have fundamentally different views, or was there more at play? What if we take some time to get to know the program before we dive into that? The popular television series MASH was an adaptation of a novel. From 1972 until 1983, it was broadcast. The show's title originates from the fact that it chronicles the lives of soldiers serving in a mobile army surgical hospital during the Korean War. Many viewers enjoyed the show's comedic and dramatic elements. Despite its comedic tone, the legendary Korean War set TV series was much more than that. The plot revolved on the heroic efforts of physicians and nurses who, despite the hardships of war, worked relentlessly to save lives. Despite dealing with tough difficulties on a daily basis, the protagonists managed to keep their spirits up and discover comedy at the worst of times. Many viewers loved Hawkeye Pierce. Even in the most trying of situations, this brilliant and humorous surgeon never failed to have a quip ready. Played by Wayne Rogers, Hawkeye's closest pal trapper John McIntyre was a real livewire who often got in on Hawkeye's antics. However, Hawkeye and Trapper weren't the only characters on MASH. There was a full ensemble of fascinating people on the program. Jamie Farr brought hilarity to the film as the flamboyant Corporal Maxwell Klinger, who was continually attempting to be dismissed by masquerading as ladies, while Loretta Swit portrayed the strict but caring head nurse, Margaret Houlihan. The program would not have been the same without the distinct personalities and eccentricities of each character. This was the unique selling point of MASH. There was just the right amount of drama and comedy. In the blink of an eye, you may be moved to tears by the plight of the injured or the mental toll of war, all because of Hawkeye's antics. Many found meaning in the program because it dared to address heavy topics and delve into profound emotions. Despite the passage of time since its last episode, it is still widely regarded as one of the most cherished television series of all time. A delightful truth, nevertheless, that you may be unaware of. McLean Stevenson had initially intended to portray Alan Alda's legendary role, the affable and clever surgeon Hawkeye Pierce, but ended up portraying the endearing but sometimes clumsy Colonel Henry Blake. Think McLean Stevenson would be perfect to deliver Hawkeye's biting one-liners. I find it to be an intriguing exercise in theoretical contemplation. The fact that Stevenson wanted to portray Hawkeye shows something that happens to a lot of actors. There are usually parts they're really interested in playing or think they'd be great in. Athletes are human, with tastes and aspirations of their own. Whether they acquire their ideal parts or not is a matter of luck. However, it seems that destiny had other intentions for McLean Stevenson in relation to MASH. Some MASH performers actually served in the military before they joined the cast, which is a surprising but true fact. The charming and eccentric Corporal Klinger, portrayed by Jamie Farr, was a 2-year veteran of the United States Army. Even though he was sent to Japan and Korea after the war ended, his military service undoubtedly provided him with a distinct viewpoint on the hardships endured by service members. Actor Alan Alda, who played the lead role, was also a veteran. During his 6 months of service in the Army Reserves, he was stationed in Korea. Even though he didn't fight on screen, his real-life experiences undoubtedly informed his depiction of the sympathetic and humorous physician Hawkeye Pierce. If that's the case, who was Alan Alda's true competition? Some say Jackie Cooper, the film's director, was responsible, while others say BJ's actor Mike Farrell was. Little Honeycutt. Why? It seemed like they were really competing with each other on TV. In their never-ending quest to demonstrate who was the superior doctor, they were also always competing with one another in terms of cleverness and silliness. Alan spoke about this healthy competition with Mike in his book, Never Have Your Dog Stuffed and Other Things I've Learned. The two would get into ridiculous contests, like seeing who could master standing on their hands quickest. It was a delightful experience to work together, and everything was done in good humor. Curiously, Alan also noted in his autobiography that he studied judo while serving in the Army. He seemed to be rather up for physical challenges and lighthearted contests with Mike, which may be explained by this. Their physical encounters weren't always lighthearted, despite the fact that they were friends. Mike would jokingly attempt to trip Alan from behind and knock him down anytime he was told to sit down, Alan noticed. Having said that, their partnership wasn't without its share of serious moments. At times, they couldn't agree, most notably on the proper actions for their characters to take. It was Mike's firm belief that his character BJ Honeycutt was pretending to be someone he wasn't. Because of this, he and Alan got into a little argument. Alan may have seen the incident differently. As performers, we feel a strong connection to the characters we play and strive to do our best to capture their essence. This probably contributed to Alan and Mike's dispute on BJ's actions. Despite occasional disagreements, they were both concerned about the welfare of their characters and the program overall. Not only did Alan and Mike have their differences, but there are other intriguing accounts of performers who passed up opportunities to make a career-altering impact on MASH. For example, Hawkeye's accomplished trapper John McIntyre was given the position by comedian Robert Klein. Can you believe it? The stand-up comic Robert Klein may have been a member of the legendary MASH ensemble, but he passed on the part for whatever reason. Klein seems unfazed by the choice, even after MASH became a smash hit. He then went on to an incredible comedic career, making cameo appearances in more than 100 films and television series. He obviously achieved success on his own, apart from the publicity that came from being on a hit program like MASH. Trapper John McIntyre's dynamic actor Wayne Rogers is included in another interesting casting detail. When Wayne joined a TV program, he didn't sign a contract like the other performers. This gave him the freedom to quit the program anytime he liked, without worrying about legal ramifications. Just picture the MASH crew's shock every time Wayne chose to go on a little getaway. With one of the lead characters appearing and disappearing at will, keeping the production on track must have required some serious juggling. Many MASH viewers loved Jamie Farr's colorful character Klinger. Did you know, however, that he was never meant to have a regular role in the program? He was initially cast as homosexual and was only slated to make a one-episode appearance. The producers, however, opted to retain Klinger on board due to his endearing eccentricity and humorous antics, which won over the audience. Curiously, once MASH went on television, the laugh track, that signature sound of the studio crowd giggling along, began to diminish. It wasn't an overnight shift, but the laughing did fade in volume and frequency. The show's tone and direction had shifted, becoming more serious and tragic, and this modification mirrored that. The makers of MASH originally intended for the program to take a different approach. It was their belief that the recorded laughter heard in some sitcoms, known as a laugh track, did not really complement the show's tone. People watching MASH should realize that despite its comedic moments, the show dealt with heavy themes like grief and conflict. Though the show's airing network, CBS, disagreed. It was typical practice back then, and they needed a laugh track. A deal was struck between the producers and CBS after some back and forth. Although they agreed to retain the laugh track, they were granted permission to shoot some scenes, such as those in the operation room, without it. The producers, who aimed for a more emotional and genuine vibe in those passages, scored a little triumph with this. The audience's ability to hear the laughs faded as the program progressed. Although it was still there, it was much less noisy and less utilized. This shift demonstrated MASH's maturation and increasing seriousness as it explored increasingly profound issues. It retained its comedic value, but the tone was darker and more serious than initially. The premiere of MASH, which took place on September 17, 1972, was an enormous success. Director Gene Reynolds and writer Larry Gelbart were both nominated for Emmys for their work on the show. Astonishingly, Larry authored the whole episode in just 3 days. That is far more exciting than completing a whole book report in a single sitting. The pilot episode was obviously exceptional because of all the accolades it garnered. It became a treasured classic despite being written hastily, yet it nonetheless won over audiences' hearts. The rest of the cast was in the dark about Colonel Henry Blake's impending death, but Hawkeye actor Alan Alda was the sole one. Envision yourself as a member of the MASH cast who, out of the blue, finds out that a key character is being abruptly and irrevocably killed off. That is precisely what happened in the event of Colonel Blake's unexpected demise. The other performers didn't find out about this turn of events until just before recording the emotionally charged sequence. Since Blake was a much-loved figure, it must have been shocking for everyone. However, unexpected turns weren't the only element that maintained MASH's intrigue. Notable actors and actresses also made guest appearances on the program. Envision a premature Ron Howard, who would go on to star in Happy Days and American Graffiti, making an appearance on MASH. On the other hand, how about an appearance by the witty Leslie Nielsen of Airplane and The Naked Gun? Patrick Swayze, the charismatic star of Dirty Dancing, was even a guest on the MASH set. The addition of these special guests boosted the show's already high ratings. The fact that MASH persisted for much longer than the Korean War itself is another astonishing aspect of the conflict. Despite the short duration of the conflict, the program aired for 11 seasons. The experience is similar to rewatching a beloved film, but with different plot twists and adventures each time. Over a decade and 256 episodes later, MASH is still going strong. Alan Alda was a multi-talented actor, nevertheless, in case you didn't know. Behind the scenes, he did a lot of different things, including directing 31 episodes and co-writing 13 more. Besides being an attractive actor, this gifted man was also a visionary behind the camera. While we're on the subject of backstory, Radar's bear deserves some attention. Will you never forget the adorable teddy bear that Radar always had on hand? In times of need, it was like having a reliable companion by his side. Unfortunately, the fate of the bear remained a mystery after the program aired. Where did Radar's cherished teddy bear go? Fans pondered this question for a long time. For 30 years, rumors circulated that this artifact from the show's history had gone missing. But then something unexpected happened. The bear made a triumphant return at auction, and you won the bet. It was none other than Radar himself, Gary Berghoff. Reconnecting with a beloved aspect of his character's life must have been an emotional experience for him. What the MASH actors didn't finish was surprising. A time capsule containing recollections and artifacts from the characters' time together was buried in one of the series' finales. Hidden on set, it is a hidden gem just waiting to be found. The time capsule was discovered by a construction worker months after shooting had ended. The long-awaited discovery of the time capsule must have taken everyone by surprise. The revelation brings back fond memories of everyone's time spent working on MASH, as if a piece of the show's history had been unearthed. A stalwart of MASH, Loretta Swit portrayed the feisty and sometimes irritable Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan. Except for 11 episodes, she was in every one of the 256 that ran on the program. It's the equivalent of playing in almost every baseball game. Quite the accomplishment, isn't it? She also managed to remain a cast member for all 11 seasons. One of the 4 original cast members that remained throughout MASH's run was Loretta. She obviously enjoyed her time on MASH and played Major Houlihan. We must not forget that every single character was significant, regardless of how prominent Loretta was on the program. Some of the supporting cast members were just as interesting as the main characters, despite MASH having a devoted fan base. Actually, the characters were called after the California Angels Baseball Club in one 1977 episode. It's a charming quirk that demonstrates the care and imagination that went into the whole production, even to the smallest characters. However, the juicy part is right here. In honor of the writer's ex-girlfriend, the show features her character. As if tucked away in the plot of the program, it's like a tiny inside joke or compliment. Some people think Patty Haven was the inspiration, however, nobody knows for sure. Whether meant as a kind gesture or a subtle dig, it's an intriguing fact that adds mystery to the show's past. The performers began to take a more active role in developing MASH as the show went on. On occasion, creative solutions might emerge from contentious situations on set. The creative team behind MASH opted for a lighthearted but demanding tack when the performers began sharing their thoughts on the plots. Despite the sweltering heat, they had the actors dress for the part in bulky winter gear. The staff was probably trying to show the actors who was boss by doing this. Despite all of these problems that occurred behind the scenes, MASH never stopped entertaining and winning over viewers. Following the series finale, many spin-offs were developed, one of which revolved on the adored character Radar O'Reilly. After the war, Radar returned home in the spin-off, but things didn't work out the way he had hoped. He became a detective after enduring loss and heartache. This spin-off only ran for one season, but it offers a fascinating look into Radar's potential. Klinger was another guy who was fortunate. Although he was only supposed to make a special appearance, the producers couldn't resist his eccentric charm and decided to make him a regular. It proves that even the most surprising characters can win over viewers. An endearing feature of MASH was the bond that developed between the performers and the families of their characters. The actor who portrayed BJ. In fact, Honeycutt took inspiration from his own daughter Erin and named her like his fictional character. It was a touching homage and an opportunity for him to inject some of himself into the program. On a lighter note, the picture of Colonel Potter's wife Mildred that graces his desk was really more than just a prop. In reality, it was a snapshot of Harry Morgan's genuine spouse. Colonel Potter's persona was given a modest but welcome boost by this fact. While working with Alda, Jackie Cooper, who directed a few episodes of MASH, wrote an autobiography titled "Please Don't Shoot My Dog." In it, Cooper discussed his impression that Alan was always attempting to include liberal views into the scripts. Alan ought to quit being a politician and focus on performing, according to Jackie. To him, it seemed like Alan was attempting to impose his will on the program and was thereby crossing some kind of boundary. Alan and Jackie had a tense relationship throughout the first 2 seasons of Jackie's directorial tenure. They were very quiet. It looks that their creative differences and personal issues caused a hard-working relationship, even though they never overtly proclaimed their hate for one another. The last episode of MASH was a major deal, but the show itself was successful despite all the turmoil that went on behind the scenes. It became one of the most watched television programs of all time after being seen by millions of Americans. However, were you aware that there was really more than one episode recorded before the final one? Filming for an additional episode titled As Time Goes By followed the original series' conclusion. It's an interesting but little-known tidbit about the show's history. Actress Loretta Swit kept in touch with her MASH co-stars, particularly Harry Morgan, even after the show ended. Swit portrayed Major Houlihan. Knowing that the bonds created on site persisted even after filming ceased is a comforting thought.